Good evening, everyone. We welcome you all to today's webinar digital session on logistics for making India a manufacturing and international trading hub. I would now request our Regional Vice President, Mr. Pankaj Vora, to kindly deliver the welcome address. Mr. Vora, please. Thank you.
Welcome you all today on this digital session on logistics. I'm Pankaj Vora, the Vice President of West India Council of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. As you might be aware, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce is a bilateral chamber promoting trade, commerce, and investment between India and USA. In order to increase bilateral trade, we have been organizing many seminars, symposiums, workshops, and these days webinars. In the recent past, we have organized many webinars, and topics covered were fiscal laws, labor laws, foreign direct investment, taxation, ease of doing business, etc. And today, we have organized this webinar on another important subject, logistics. How logistics can be can make India a manufacturing and international hub in the days ahead. As we all know, an efficient logistics system is requisite for sustainable economic development of any country. And in the context of an emerging economy like India, this becomes relevant. We all know poor infrastructure and average logistic management practices are adding transaction costs in India. A few years ago, Government of India announced foreign trade policy 2004-2000. A salient feature of this policy was these free trade and warehousing zones is a category of special economic zones and are governed by SEZ Act 2005. These free trade and warehousing zones facilitate import-export of goods and services in fully convertible foreign currencies. Today, we are going to have more insight on this subject by none other than one of our patron members, Arshia Limited. Arshia Limited is a pioneer in developing and promoting free trade zone and warehousing in India. And our today's eminent speakers include Mr. Ajay Mittal, Chairman and Managing Director of Arshia Limited, Mr. Raghavendra Sarup, in charge Service and Service Supply Chain, India and SAARC, Cisco, and Mr. Amit Gupta, Chief Executive Officer of Arshia Limited. Mr. Amit Gupta will make a presentation and take us through this concept of free trade and warehousing zone. That will be followed by a brief talk by Mr. Raghavendra Sarup. He will share his experience and insight on this subject with us. And at last, Mr. Ajay Mittal will also share his experience on this subject and will take questions from the attendees. I'd like to request all the attendees to post their questions on the chat box. Alternatively, they can also ask questions in person during question session. Invite Amit, can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. It's floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vora, and thanks to all of you, all the attendees. Hope all of you can hear me. I welcome you to this webinar, and we'll go through free trade warehousing zone, what they mean and what they offer to all of you. I hope all of you can see the screen as well. So over the next 10 minutes, we will go through what free trade warehousing zones from an Indian perspective are and what they offer to all of us. If we can move on to the next page. So for you all as a foreign or non-resident entity in India, free trade warehousing zone offers stock and sell opportunity for all of you without need for any India registration, import export code, permanent account number, bank account. So you can make your products readily available to your customers, deliver them, with a very short lead time, and this can help you grow your business in India. Not just stocking, even apart from stocking and selling, you can do manufacturing, processing, assembly as you need in the free trade warehousing zones also. And it doesn't matter whether the raw material for this manufacturing or processing is imported or it is manufactured in India, or it may be a mix of these. In doing all this business, there is no burden or obligation of Indian taxes or any type of Indian compliances on the foreign entities. Not just sell in India, you can also re-export or export from India to any third country. And all this, we offer plug and play infrastructure to get you operational in a few minutes from the moment you decide you want to work in a free trade warehousing zone. So, it is really a proposition, it's a platform that can help you grow your top line and bottom line, help you facilitate your business in India, offers you a place of doing business in India without actually, imposing too much of, compliances or tax complications on you as non-resident or foreign entities. Needless to say, all this can be done by Indian entities also. If some of you or many of you have Indian subsidiaries already. But the main thing about a free trade warehousing zone is it allows all this for foreign or non-resident entities. If we can move on to the next page where we want to show this diagrammatically. So in the middle, in orange, you can see the free trade warehousing zone, where your goods, or parts manufactured either in India or abroad can come to the free trade warehousing zone. It can be any type of raw material or it can be a finished good itself. In the free trade warehousing zone, you can avail of storage, handling, contract manufacturing, or any other kind of process you need. Even simple warehousing is okay. Even most complex manufacturing process is okay. Within the free trade warehousing zone, you can sell it to any other entity, whether overseas entity or Indian entity. And your customer can also receive goods and again store in free trade warehousing zone for use as they need. From free trade warehousing zone, it can go for job work or processing in the domestic area of India, anywhere in India, for any kind of job work or processing. And finally, it can be sold to your customers, whether they are Indian entities, foreign entities, it can get exported also to any other country. And all this business can be done without any registration requirement, without any compliance obligation, without any tax implication for overseas entity or foreign entities in India. We'll move on to the next page where we show you where we are in India and what kind of facilities do we offer. So we are present in two of the biggest cities in India. one in Delhi NCR, and second near Mumbai. And in both these places, we have about 1.5 million square feet, which is already operational, up and running. There is about 3.5 lakh square feet, which is under construction, under development. And we offer all kind of storage facilities, irrespective of whether you want to store palletized cargo, non-palletized cargo, whether you want temperature controlled facility, whether you want has cargo facilities. So, all these options are available in a plug and play mode at our zones, at our both the free trade warehousing zones. If we can move on to the next page, please. So this is a snapshot of our customers who have been using us over the last 10 years. You will see them across different industries, chemicals, retail, metals, IT, telecom. You will see several of the global 3PLs operating out of our zones. Uh, Pharma, industrial engineering, you will see many of the shipping lines and, even air carriers operating out of our zones, serving their customers out of our zones. We also have Mr. Raghavendra Sarup from Cisco, who is one of our customers with us here today. And, I would like him to share his thoughts. They have been working with us for several years, just share his experience and, what benefits have they got from our free trade warehousing zones. Please welcome Mr. Raghavendra to share, their experience with all of you.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. In fact, I would say we take great pride about being the first customers at the first free trade warehousing zone. And it actually goes back to 2012, when we actually set up operations. Our requirements were numerous, right? When we actually got to understand what a free trade zone has to offer to us. And we scouted a lot of options, but nothing really kind of fitted our overall model. But when it came to the Arsha free trade zone primarily, I think we had to do a lot of stitching around in terms of from the customs to the extent of into the Ministry of Commerce and Finance, from getting a whole bank model and the operational model kind of thing in place, right, to meet our requirements. And that's something which is most fascinating about getting the model in place with Arshia and the team as such here. Just trying to give a quick background of what the service supply chain model that we have in country, right? We basically cater to around to our customers to maintain little zero downtime and no network disruption, right? And that it means we have to deliver parts to them, whether it's on a 24-hour basis for within 4-hour timeline across 199 cities, and 119 cities, which also translates to close to around 2,000 odd pin codes, right? And we do this by actually importing over parts worth close to 200 million a year and discharging of around $30 million of duties and taxes. That's a huge cost, right? And with the duties ever increasing, we obviously had to have a more optimized solution for us to maintain parts in country, where we are able to kind of cater to the customers with the time criticality, keeping the time criticality in mind. And that is where we were able to stitch a solution with Arshia, the free trade zone, whereby the team were able to facilitate a 2-hour clearance model, which is unheard of when we started off. And in fact, even when our vice president was trying to kind of address this at a conference, he actually also was taken aback when he had to use 2-hour clearances in India. It was not quite what it was at that point of time. And why did we need 2-hour clearance? Because we needed to get our parts at least by the day end to ensure that we can meet our deliveries by the subsequent day by 5 p.m. the next day, right? So we had to get our parts out within a span of 2 hours for that. And I think this is where the whole thing worked out in terms of making this a living reality, which of course involved a great collaboration effort with the customs, the Ministry of Commerce, the SEEPs, and of course a great drive from the Arsha team overall. Right, I think I've been more family now to Cisco and have been a great critical partner to us over the years already. And uh, it also meant, right, the facility that offers and with Cisco standards in mind and the product quality and all, warehousing infrastructure that's provided had to be in par with global standards, and that's where I think which really got us to the Arsha Free Trade Zone as well, so that it addresses not only the requirement for us from a time criticality, but also in terms of the quality of services offered, and also in terms of maintaining our parts, which are in itself, if I'm talking about a single part being worth $1.5 million, you know what I'm talking about in terms of the authority, the value it actually holds, right? And when it's talking about crime criticality, is also in terms of getting it out to time to market, right? And that is something which we were able to work out well with Arsha, and has been growing splendidly so far, 8 years now. And yep, we have had issues from the different policy changes, but I think what remains untouched is the overall support that we've been able to provide to our customers over these years, right? And with the business model working absolutely fine, and bringing out new innovative ways in which we can support our customers even better by making use of this zone. And while the key component was to probably look at having a more optimized model from a cost perspective, we also have kind of set it up wherein we are in a position to re-export parts to our neighboring countries, whether it's Singapore or even Sri Lanka, etc. So in terms of one, we are able to mitigate the duties which otherwise we would have paid, and these parts had to be re-exported on payment of duty. So that's something we've also been able to mitigate and act as a good supplier of parts across the region, in keeping in mind the essence of time. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I think all of this put together is an absolute package that we can get from the services industry as such. And services, I'm sure everybody knows how it is in terms of time and the escalations or issues that we've come across. And I think it really puts all of this together to support our customers and the industry as a whole. Right. Yep. I think with that, I would like to pass it on to Mr. Mittal, who's been the pioneer in terms of getting this set up. And yep, we do remember having the most pleasantries across with our leadership team as well, Mr. Mittal, and we shared across in global conferences all the time. Yep, Mr. Mittal, thank you.
You are on mute.
I think by the time Mr. Mittal comes in, I would request all the attendees to post their questions on the chat box. Mr. Just for the benefit of attendees, I would like to inform them this concept is very useful in terms of ready accessibility of the imported stocks and deferment of payment of custom duties. Because as you clear goods from free trade and warehousing zones, that only you need time. That time only you need to pay the custom duties. Yes, Mr. Mittal.
Yep. Just to add to Mr. Pankaj itself, yeah, I think talking about deferment of duty, we are talking about at least close to close to $7 to $8 million that we've been able to defer over year on year, right? And true duty savings for us for parts which have been re-exported, translating to close to around $2.5 million. So that's the amount that we're kind of talking about. Yeah.
Substantial
Yes,
amount.
yeah.
Sorry, some technical glitch at this end. Thank you very much, Raghuendra, and everybody on all the eminent members and the participants who are here. We've been having a few questions already posted to me, and I'd be happy to answer them. But just before starting to answer all the questions, I'd like to expand on what Amit was saying, is with regards to some of the solutions that we have built across on the platform of infrastructure and services, like we've done for Cisco. It requires a kind of a little bit of a preliminary dive into your present processes of doing business. And we have come out with a solution over the years that we have been operational over 10 years, along with the world-class facility that we have been able to put up, is to get into your processes at a very, very macro level and very quickly identify the kind of savings that you can have. And I can assure you, with Raghuendra's experience at Cisco also, the savings keep on ever increasing, with not only duties going up, but also with regards to increasing market share, as well as at the end of the day, translating into a better PAT and a better EBITDA. And this is something that we thrive on, and we actually have been able to prove to large number of clients, almost servicing at this point of time foreign clients in excess of about 100 or so, and they're all of great importance to the country as well as to the businesses of our clients. So we've kind of reached a situation where a solution is not only for the industry but also for the individual client, and that requires a little bit of a dive into seeing what your present processes are. So I'll start off with that and start taking questions, and I've been sent a few questions already. First one that I've got is, can foreign clients work in FTWZ without having any presence and permanent establishment in India? The answer is yes. As a foreign client, you simply need to register with our 3PL subsidiary entity, and that registration process doesn't take more than a few minutes actually, once you have decided, once we have engaged and we have decided on commercials and so on and so forth. And the only wait then is to get the product inside the FTWZ. So virtually we say that within minutes you can get operational within an FTWZ in India. The second question that I have is, can we do manufacturing activities in FTWZ? If yes, is it end-to-end manufacturing or partial manufacturing or assembly or refurbishment? Well, we can do everything. We are allowed we are virtually a multi-product SEZ, if I don't have a better word, and you can do every kind of manufacturing that you want to. We recently had a very classic example where a very simplistic thing, we have spectacles I'm wearing. We had a very simplistic solution that we gave to one of the largest spectacle manufacturers in the world, is that he was buying frames from India and he was importing lenses into India. For the global market now, they are putting up their manufacturing here, where we will just simply take the frames from the Indian DTA manufacturer and the imported lenses that the client brings in. Our people, on a contract manufacturing basis, well, you can do your own manufacturing also, but on a contract manufacturing basis, we will convert it into a spectacle and then re-export it or send it to India, wherever your client is. So that is allowed for not only spectacles but for any kind of product. The other question that I have is, will Harsha provide trained labor technicians and subject experts for such manufacturing in FTWZ? Well, yes and no. depending upon the operation. If it's as simple as putting a lens in a frame, yes. But if it's something very complicated where we need to create, we had a recent inquiry for manufacturing elevators, which is not something that we are experts at. But with the help of our clients bringing in the expertise and having some supervision, that has also been made possible. Can we undertake e-commerce business for FTWs? That's a very interesting question that I have here in front of me. E-commerce, as you know, we all buy now, especially post-COVID. Even I've got into a habit of logging on to Amazons and other e-commerce sites. And one of the issues that I face personally also is that whenever I order something which is made in India, I get the delivery within a couple of days. If I order something which is not coming in from India, even if it's a medical item, a vitamin tablet, which is not manufactured here, it takes forever, 14 days, 15 days, and I'm always trying to track it on Amazon and other platforms like this. The advantage that an e-commerce player has in an FTWZ is that they can have their vendors keep product in our zone without payment of duty. And at the end of the day, when there are orders from multiple buyers who don't have IEC code, because we are individual people who don't have IEC codes, we will consolidate that into a bill of entry, and then on payment of duty, we can send it out into through couriers which they have tie-ups with. It can be sent out to individuals. So there is a huge opportunity in the e-commerce space, especially post-COVID. The other question is that what are the logistics support systems provided for exporters during COVID scenario? Well, I was just mentioning earlier when we kind of all of us had logged in a bit earlier, is that being an essential service, we were never shut down for a single day. So none of our clients suffered in any manner. In fact, even to the extent that clients were finding it difficult to get trucks to move their products from ports and incurring heavy detention damage charges from shipping lines, we were able to move their trucks immediately into our facility without having any hassles, without incurring any detention damage. Even if they didn't have a market immediately for the product, because during COVID the demands had fallen down substantially for many industries. I wouldn't say that for all industries, but for many industries, they were able to store the product in our warehouses without paying any detention damage again on the containers and so on and so forth. So that has been a great help for importers and exporters. Logistics support system provided for exporters is what the question is. For exporters, it is the same. I mean, we can bring in your product from wherever you're manufacturing. The moment you send it to an FTWZ, being a deemed foreign territory, it is considered to be an export. So all your export benefits that you get comes in when you are exporting it into the free trade warehousing zone. You don't have to wait for it to be physically exported, being a deemed foreign territory. What next question is, what favorable policies will government extend to logistics industry to grow India? Wow. Government should set up hubs in north, south, east, west, and central zones in India. Not only big companies, even MSME sector should have access to these hubs. I agree completely. And Arsha's initial plan was to have 5 zones in north, south, east, west, and central India. But then as we grew, we realized that very efficiently our western facility, which is in Panvel, is able to service efficiently the entire south and the central India part, and the one in the north is very efficiently servicing the eastern part of India and the northern part of India. So it's about why do people go in for mother warehouses and the hub and spoke concept. It's like me. When I travel often to Delhi, and then I realized that I go that often that I've started keeping an extra pair of clothes and extra pair of toothbrush and so on and so forth. And that's the same concept of hubbing, that the more you are multiple warehousing is going to lead to having more product stored rather than in the hands of the customer, and that means that much more is your cost in terms of storage and so on and so forth. So hubbing is the way that one should really look at, and we quickly realized, and without having to spend more money in creating 3 more zones, we were able to service customers across India with only 2 zones. So government should, and MSME sectors welcome in our zone. You don't need to wait for government to do anything. Whatever the government had to do, have done through this policy. We worked with companies like Cisco when there were initial hiccups, when this concept was fairly new to India, but we've overcome most of them, I would say. And there are certain kind of scenarios or transactions which are very unique in nature, where the government has been extremely supportive when we go to them and explain them along with the client what they want exactly, and government immediately responds favorably in most cases I've seen. The other question is manufacturing export oriented units updates on pharmaceutical industry. I didn't quite get this question. So I'm going to bypass this, sorry. I can take it offline. Whoever's asked this question, you can talk to our people, because I was not following exactly. What would be the policy for free trade zones can be revised to increase the logistics benefits for imports? If we get detailed information on topics, it will be helpful. My team details are given in the presentation, and I'm going to request the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce to help us with providing us email addresses of all the participants. We would be happy to share the details of the contacts of the individuals in our company whom you could contact to get more details. And in this COVID period, I also find it difficult for people to travel to visit our facility, which we would love you all to visit. But we have a short 2-minute film, which we will also email to you all, which is a virtual walkthrough of the entire facility, and which gives you a fairly good idea. And thank you, Raghavendra, for supporting in saying that the infrastructure that you saw and what you are using for the last 8-9 years has been of world class. So we were lucky to build a world-class facility, and hence we have clients like Cisco and many others. The next question will be, will you allotting ready land to us for set up our own industry, or will offer only constructed infrastructure? That's a very commercial question to answer on this on this webinar, but yes and no. I mean, it all depends. If there is a very complicated structure that you need to build for your requirements, and it needs very heavy capex, and commercially it doesn't make sense for us to put in that kind of capex, then we are okay looking at even giving land, but that's not our business. We are not land sellers like other SEZs. We are basically into the business as a developer on one side, where we develop the land, the infrastructure, the warehouses, the manufacturing facilities. Then you bring in your own equipment. We will help you in manufacturing, either on a 100% contract manufacturing basis, or with your help if we need any technical help. But to cut a long story short, the answer is yes and no, depending upon how complicated is the structure. Is temporary removal of goods allowed in FTWZ? Very much. So if you have any process which needs to go out of the country, out into India for temporary refurbishment or some kind of activity that needs to be performed, that is absolutely allowed, including exhibitions. So we have a lot of clients who keep the cargo in our free trade zone, which gets exhibited in various parts of India during exhibition times, which is not happening nowadays recently with COVID. But it makes their life very simple. They don't need to give any specific bonds. They can keep all of their product without payment of duty in our zone, and no cumbersome processes have to be followed. It's a very easy process. The product goes out under a bond, which we will provide, and comes back under that same bond into the free zone, which can be then again stored there for your next exhibition, or if it has to be re-exported, if your exhibition is in Dusseldorf next, it can be re-exported to Dusseldorf. Next question is, do you have warehouses from 0 degrees to 8 degrees or 0 degrees to -20 degrees? Yes, we do. We have all kinds of temperature controlled warehouses, and as we speak, we do have a shortage, but we are constructing a 325,000 square foot warehouse, which is going to be probably one of the largest warehouses in the country, which is multi-storied also. And we are going to have more space with regards to these temperature controlled warehouses that you're talking about. This is a great question. Is income tax benefit still available in FTWZ? As you're all aware that as a unit holder, and I'm making this very specific, as a unit holder, the tax department or the revenue department is no longer from 31st of March going to give any kind of tax benefits in terms of income tax. Other tax benefits will continue. But if you're a client of a unit holder and a foreign entity, you don't have to pay any taxes in India. There is no permanent establishment status that you have. You don't need any registration. You don't pay any taxes. So all your billings will be done by the foreign entity, whether you sell to a client in India or you sell to a client outside India for re-export purposes. There is no taxation on your profit that you make in India whatsoever. So those were some of the questions that I had in front of me. I've just received one more. Just give me a second. How efficient is it is to support from FTZ to international customers? Example, as a company managing APAC part distribution center from FTZ India. Yes, I think Cisco is a great example. They have been not only servicing markets in India, and for a long time they have been servicing our neighboring countries also and their neighboring clients, and just in time virtually. Cisco is a great client for us and a great example, and they've made us pull up our socks right from day one, is because they send us an email twice a day, and in 4 hours they want us to pick 1 or 3 or 5 or 10 products out of the 28,000 SKUs that they carry with us, and pack it, label it in the with pricing for whichever country it has to go to, and they give us a 4-hour window to do so, and we've been able to do it successfully. So that I have the KPIs. 2 mistakes. Okay, sorry, sir, in 8 years. But the KPIs was within the SLAs, so the service level agreement. So yes, we were able to do so, and we are very proud of our team who has been extremely efficient in carrying out this activity. 1 second. What capability does? Which IT system do you use at Arshia? Well, we use the SAP warehouse management system, and the reason we use SAP is not only from a client's perspective, but it actually gives us benefits. I'm not advocating SAP here, but it gives us benefits because we found that system to be the most efficient system in terms of locating your product. As I said, Cisco's example, when we have to find 3 of their items out of 28,000 items, it doesn't take us more than a few seconds to know which rack or which position it is in which warehouse, and so on and so forth. So we do use SAP. We also have the capabilities of integrating your system to our system. We also have capabilities for you with our security systems. There are some clients who want to watch their product at any given time, and they can log in. We will give you the address where you can log in, and you can actually on real-time basis see your product, see any kind of valued services activities happening on your product. You can monitor your product sitting at Heathrow Airport any given time by just logging in. So all those facilities through IT is available at our facility. I don't have any more questions as such, but if there are any more that the panel would like to post, or be more than happy to answer, or if there are any other questions, if they show up, I will be more than happy to answer. And over to you, Saurabh, if you have any questions or.
One question, Mr. Mittal, as you have explained that you have facility of storing low temperature technology products. Are you able to store products that are to be stored at -30°C?
Well, as of now, we don't have -30, but that's the least of our problems. We can create a -30° facility. I mean, we've reached -20, reaching -30 is just putting an extra HVAC system. So that's not an issue.
Okay.
It's all about client's requirements. So the other thing good about our company is that we are very flexible in creating solutions and infrastructures for you. And just reiterate that if we are given an opportunity to look at a macro level your processes, we can design specific systems for you and definitely tell you how much we can do savings for you.
Right. By the way, just out of curiosity, do you store individually keep frozen products right now in your facility?
Yes, we do.
IQF products individually frozen.
Sorry, your voice is breaking. Could anybody else follow that question?
Somehow,
No, I
do
couldn't
you have a
follow.
facility of storing IQF products?
What products?
IQF.
IPF products. I
Anyhow.
think that's what.
I couldn't follow the question, Mr. Bora. I can take it offline with you. Well,
Mr. Mittal, I have one, out of the box question and just an observation. Do you see a possibility of setting up clusters of MSME for some kind of technology transfer within this framework?
it's a good idea, actually. You've not
Because,
thought of it.
allow me to expand on this, Mr. Mittal. Even at the chamber, we have been, taking all the initiatives to encourage MSME to reach out to, the US joint venture partners and vice versa. And as you know, MSME plays a very important role as far as India is concerned and our country's GDP. But many of these MSME may not be able to afford technology on a standalone basis in terms of technology transfer. And hence, I would like to, explore and of course, would like to place before you whether we can set up an MSME clusters of a same industry or a domain, wherein it is easy for them to consolidately import technology and make use of it. Just a thought.
It's a brilliant idea, in fact, Saurabh. It is something I would love to explore with you. Given your background as a chartered accountant, you would understand this subject better. Like to learn from you, but I see no reason why this can't be done. This is something which is going to be so beneficial not only for the Indian economy but for the smaller industries. It would be definitely a great boon.
Thank you. I'll take this up.
There is another question that has come up from it's how
Thank you.
smooth is customs clearance? Any experience in storage of precious metals or high value materials?
Well, the customs for products which are coming in to the free zone, there is no involvement whatsoever of the customs as such. Only there is some examination which they do on a random basis so that they are ensured on, whatever is declared in the bill of lading and the packing list is not different from what is actually coming. And we like that because we don't want such kind of products coming in. So it's a pretty smooth system, number one. Number two, when the product is getting exported, re-exported out or exported out of the country, again, it's a very seamless system. There is no issues. When it is getting imported into the country, if it is, let's say Cisco imports a product into the FTWZ and then it is selling it to a client of its it has in India, then a normal process of getting it cleared through the customs office within our free trade zone. And I don't think in our experience, it takes more than a few hours to get it assessed. And custom duty can be paid now online. Otherwise, failing which, we also have a State Bank of India branch which can collect duty on behalf of the customs department within our free trade zone. So if you feel like carrying a draft to pay duty or whatever it is, that is also possible across the street within the zone. So payment of custom duty is easy. Was there another question? There was
That was,
Precious.
it was me, Rakhi. Sir, there are a couple of more questions that has come up. And this question is from our Pune branch chairman, Mr. Rajesh Wazirkar. And this is for Mr. Swaroop. Which countries are supported by Cisco from India? Is the question. This is for you, Mr. Swaroop.
Yeah. So primarily we are basically looking at shipping it back to Singapore, or we've also moved stock to Sri Lanka. Bangladesh is yet to kind of happen, but I think regionally we are looking at the options that we have. It's just that in terms of the current model, Singapore has always been the regional hub as such. But in terms of getting it out from India and supporting our neighboring countries, we're trying to expand it out. But yeah, for now, this is what we have. And we've also shipped stock across to US and Europe as well. But those probably a little more fewer than the ones that we do as a regular one for Singapore and within the region.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mittal, there are a couple of more questions for you, sir. The question is from Mr. Vibhuti Bhushan Swain. He is asking, how about doing a multi-country consolidation, say at MAA, FTZ, for cargo coming from Far East to Africa?
That is possible, absolutely. That is
Okay.
absolutely possible. And, just to expand on that, that is one of the business models which has been very successful for most of our clients in India. There is also one question which I didn't answer was precious metals. Yes, we have precious metals in our facility. We have strong rooms with proper security systems, including vibration. So if there is, for any reason, there is a cat in the in the strong room, the movement of a cat which is tiptoeing is also captured by the vibrating system. So we have all those facilities within our zone. So precious metal is being stored, and FTWZ is nothing but a global trading hub. In fact, we were recently approached by some of the exchanges, the commodity exchanges, who really wanted to see if they can store products and will put up an exchange which is more online, but start exchange, putting products for the exchange in our facility, which the answer is yes, and it is getting exported to all parts of the world. So you can, recent example, we had one of India's largest manufacturers of steel had been importing some steel from Russia and then selling it to Qatar, and Qatar had certain restrictions, so probably they had to change their entire supply chain to move it to Qatar from Dubai, and they came to our place. So the product came in from Russia, came to us, and then since we don't have any issues with sending it to Qatar, unlike Dubai had, we were able to do that very efficiently. In fact, they appreciated not only the fact that they were able to not lose their client, but they also brought down their cost substantially, because it involved a lot of labor, and with the labor arbitrage advantage that India has as compared to Dubai, because we pay much lower labor costs in this country, and it actually expanded to another area where India itself became a market because they started storing product. So they started finding buyers in India. So it had multiple benefits which they explored over a period of time. It started with just finding a solution how to send products from Russia to by bypassing Dubai, and it now has ended up in not only doing that, but to also expand the market in India and neighboring countries soon, I guess.
Right. So there's another question from Mr. Gautam Choksi from HP, that how about movement from one FTZ to another FTZ?
It's the simplest, absolutely possible. One FTZ to another FTZ, one FTZ to an export-oriented unit, or another SEZ, or another port, or an airport. Very easy, seamless.
I think that's all that we have got. We have not received any further question.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants, and once again, we'll be more than happy to answer all the questions. Will be shared with the email addresses of all the participants. We'll send you all the details, and request everybody to stay home, stay safe. We will all get over this. I'm an optimist, so I'm sure we will all get over this together jointly. India is on the rise, but I guess it should peak soon. And take care. All the best to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mittal and Mr. Amit Gupta, Mr. Swaroop, for making presentation and sharing your experiences. I hope all the participants are enlightened with your informative talk. I would now request our second Vice President of West India Council of ISCC to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you,
Shaurabh.
Mr. Gora. Thank you, Mr. Gora. It is indeed a privilege and honor to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. First and foremost, on behalf of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce and on my personal behalf, I would like to thank the eminent panelists for sharing their wisdom, insight into this very dynamic and pragmatic subject. Really very encouraging and a lot of learning, I'm sure all of us gathered from this session. My heartiest gratitude to Mr. Ajay Mittal, Mr. Amit Gupta, and Mr. Raghavendra Swarup. I would like to thank Arshia Limited for partnering with us, and special thanks to Ms. Aparna Kishore for being of immense support for this event. Thank you very much, Ms. Aparna. Of course, I would be failing in my duty if I do not thank our regional president, Mr. Naushad Panjwani, for taking this initiative to focus on bilateral trade from a 360-degree angle and doing this program with Arshia Limited. My gratitude to our regional vice president, Mr. Pankaj Bora, for his opening remarks and for setting the pitch for this wonderful topic. Also, we would like to thank our regional director, Ms. Rakhi Panda, and her dynamic and very dedicated team for pulling yet another program so successfully. Last but not the least, I bestow my gratitude upon the participants who have been actively participating and interacting with our panelists and have been always supporting our programs, and especially today's program as well. With this, I would like to also mention that many of the participants are having a little weak connectivity because of the weather. We will be sharing the recording of this program to every participant over an email, and I'm sure you'll be happy to listen to and follow this at your convenience. With this, I would like to conclude this program. Once again, thanks to everyone, and have a lovely, wonderful evening. Thank you very much.